I've always wanted to see what's inside a credit card, and I think the best way to, open up a credit card is to cook it, because y'all don't know how credit card basically works. You can see it really clearly with the Apple Card. It's basically sandwiched between a bunch of layers, and those layers are either pressed on or glued on. So by boiling it, we can separate the pieces and try to see what's inside. All right, so I have my whole stack of metal credit cards right here in the palm of my hand. Now I don't want to do the curved card because it's more of a limited edition type of card. There's some other cards where I only have like a one copy of, so that's probably going to be a no. The Apple Card, it would be interesting to boil up. I think because there's no NFC, it wouldn't be as a unique experience. So I'm going to probably try to find a card that, you can use tap to pay with, which narrows down the selection quite a bit. Like for example, my Verizon credit cards don't have tap to pay. The Chase Sapphire and Chase Reserve cards do, but they're a little bit thinner. I kind of want to do something more unique. Well, why not use a credit card that I don't really care about anyway? Let's select this Rose Gold card. It was a card that I was an authorized user on. It's currently closed now. It was my wife's account, but this card isn't that great of a color, right? And of course, with a card like this, I don't really want to get my pans dirty. So we're gonna go ahead and use this clear pot that I bought off Amazon for about like 10 bucks. So it's not too bad. And also you get to see what's going on inside. I'm sorry, CJ, for what I'm gonna do. It's trying to survive. How do you tell when a credit card is medium rare? If you see, after when I boiled the card, it has this like water stain in it. I think it's like water penetrating the card. Some of the cards actually peeled off, if you see on the bottom here. Remember kids, don't do this at home. Let me try a smaller knife. Here's a pocket knife. Let's go ahead and try this. You know what? It could go a little bit longer. It's still pretty hard to pry apart. So back in it goes. Okay, so let's try again. Now, if that ain't well done, I don't know what is. It kind of feels really weird, kind of like roughish. And there's a lot of pieces peeling off the front. So let's go ahead and try it this time. Oh yeah, that's coming off way easier. There you go. Just peels right off. So here's the back side. And then here's another layer to the back side, actually. It's like a little film. What's also weird about the back side is there's a little plus sign of where the chip should be. So that's kind of interesting. And then it's like this really thin, maybe it's metal. It's really hard to tell. It kind of feels metal-ish, but a really thin metal. Like you can fold this thing straight in half. There's also, I think, glue from the trip here. And here's the little film I was talking about. So one thing interesting about the back, I can definitely see that there's a wire back here, and it looks like the wire that you use for tap to pay. But for some reason, there's like a layer between it, so I'm gonna go ahead and try to break that layer apart. Kind of interesting too, on the back layer where everything you see, is printed on, it's kind of like a paperish cardboard type of feel. And the thin metal is the thing that I'm trying to peel off. It's coming off slowly though. All right, so I got a pretty good chunk of the back metal off, and as you can see here, there's a little like a magnetic strip right here. So that's pretty cool where they keep it. All right, so I'm back. I have a clear jar and some acetone. Let's go ahead and try to break down the back of the card even further. Some trusty old nail polish remover from Target. There we go. Right, so it looks like it's about done or done de-shedding. Oh, it's coming right apart. This was the part where all your card information is on. Now it's just a really thin sheet of plastic or something. Cover that back up because it smells quite a bit. So I'm scratching up the metal some more, and it seems like it's either like mixed into the back, because obviously there would be more magnetic strip here. So, or this is it, I guess. But this is what it looks like with a thin layer off. It's so your card numbers are definitely engraved in or punched in, but everything else, you know, the contact support and all that stuff, that was disintegrated off. It's interesting too that it keeps its like kind of rose gold color even with the film off of it. I don't know if it rubbed off or if it always was rose gold underneath. That's really neat. I thought it was only going to be like on that top layer. So now that we have the credit card all torn out, let me walk you through each part of the credit card and kind of explain what each function does. So normally with metal credit cards, there are 3 distinct layers. However, with the American Express Rose Gold card, there were more like 6 layers, which makes it really, really durable. It was really hard to take each part off. The metal is actually strictly on the front of the card. On the back of the card, which is what I have here, it's not metal. It's like there's a thin layer of metal or metal-like substance, but all the true metal, all the weight is on the front of the card, which I think makes sense because on the back of the card is where you're going to get the tap to pay. And if the surface is too thick, your tap to pay won't work. So I had to get it out of a different card. This is basically how your tap to pay works. So you see this wire all around? This is the wire that would emit a radio wave so you can use tap to pay. And it doesn't need any batteries to run. It just, you know, gives off a really small amount of energy. And if for some reason the wiring gets disconnected from the chip, then your tap to pay won't be functional. But it's really interesting to look at. So on the front part, there's this kind of like filmic layer, and it comes with all the color because you can see right here, when I boiled it, some of the film was coming off, and underneath you kind of see that like metal steel to it. But even more so on the back side, you can see I kind of ripped it off a little bit, but there's another layer of metal between that. And it looks like it protects the durability of the card. So basically the front is kind of like a showpiece. This is what it sounds like when I drop it. Kind of sounds like aluminum foil. So for the back, there's a layer of metal that covers the magnetic strip and everything else of the back. On the actual back, it feels like this kind of papery material. It's white. And then attached on that is like this magnetic strip. It looks like it's gold on the actual back, but when you turn it over, it's like this silver color. And it's really interesting that they do it this way because I've seen other credit cards that have magnetic strips, and you just kind of even use your fingernails. You can kind of rip off most credit cards' magnetic strip. It's just kind of like plastered on, but this is actually embedded into the back of the card. But what's really interesting is this is where the chip of the card used to lay. As you can see, there's a little plus sign on the card, and I don't think this is like anything doing with function. I think it's how the machines know where to place a chip exactly, because especially with this being a metal card, there's not that much margin for error. This is where the American Express logo was on the back of the card. Even more interesting too, if you see on the front of the card, it still keeps its color, but on the back, since I dipped it in water, well, boiled it in water, it kind of changes into this like, I don't know, like pale pink. I'm not sure what would happen if you put this card in your pants and you forgot it and you washed it, if it would still kind of change the color of the card. If you guys have any experience washing your credit cards in the washing machine, let me know down below. And then here's the piece of the credit card that you know and love, the chip. And if you shine, I know you all can't see it, but if you shine some of the light through, you can actually see through the chip. It's kind of interesting. So on the American Express Rose Gold card specifically, they have the larger chip, and this is going to be an 8-pin chip compared to a lot of other credit cards where they only have 6 pins. And it definitely looks a lot smaller. You know, this is the American Express Rose Gold chip, and this is the size chip on most credit cards. You can definitely see the difference. So if I'm not mistaken, for when you put your credit card into a chip reader, the chip reader reads the top portion of this chip, and then it processes everything on the back of the chip. And on the back of the chip, if you can see, there's a layer of like glue or proxy or something, just to make sure all the components of the chip stay intact. Because if any of these wires aren't intact, then your chip won't function. And if you see on the center here, This is where all the most of the security processing happens. And that's why inserting your card is a lot more secure than just swiping your card. But yeah, that was everything inside of your credit card and how each part functions inside of the credit card. Hope you all thought that was interesting, and I'll see you later. Oh, and also I was kind of curious how much the top part would weigh if it didn't have the back. 10 grams, so almost, I believe, 5 grams off. That's really interesting.